Hi, and welcome to the next short presentation on resilience. So today I'm going to be talking about sleep and how our sleep impacts our ability to, one, confront difficult decisions, and two, sort of be more resilient or increase our mental toughness. So when I sort of look at sleep, I'm going to talk about a couple different elements of sleep. So I'm going to talk a little bit about circadian rhythms, and then how the sleep process itself helps reset us for our day. So a couple of things that sleep does for us is that sleeping overnight resets our level of vigilance. So if we decrease our level of sleep that we're getting each night, then our vigilance goes up and we're more prone to see threats within our environment that might not exist. So if you turn up and you haven't had a lot of sleep, when you're interacting with somebody, you're going to start seeing neutral body language being more as a negative body language. If you're sort of like a frontline worker, when someone comes in, you're going to start to see more threatening information than neutral information. So you're very much more aligned to picking up threats within your environment and seeing that as sort of more of a requirement to survive or respond to threat. And it goes back to sort of very primitive survival stuff. But we're much more negatively biased when we haven't had a lot of sleep, and that's how we respond because we just want to survive throughout the day. It also, when we sleep overnight, we reset our emotion back to its baseline, or we sort of reconcile any emotions from the prior day. So if we're not sleeping enough, then we carry all those emotions forward into the next day. And again, that can impact our level of vigilance, our response to that, and it also makes us carry over any sort of stress residue from the day before into the next day. And then also neuroplasticity takes place in our sleep. So, if we are looking, where we're in an environment where we need to adapt or learn from one day to the next, where we are under a lot of pressure and we need to sort of adapt, evolve, learn, so that we can improve the way our processes are, then without that sort of sleep, we're not getting that neuroplasticity and we're missing out on that learning. So we're not making those new brain connections. Okay, the sort of space between those neural connections isn't shrinking so that we get a faster connection. It's staying the same, and over a long enough period, it can grow. So we can get a maladaptive process with our neuroplasticity. So sort of put it into a sort of better explanation for us. So if we look at this is our sleep period. We've got our day period here, and this is our circadian rhythm where we sort of have a rise, a decrease around lunchtime when you sort of get that lull. We get a spike again in the afternoon, and then we start to decrease in our cognitive performance into the evening. Okay, we sleep and we get that restoration. So if we look at our sleep period, this period here is where a lot more of our physical recovery goes on. So a higher percentage of our recovery is more physical. This area here is more emotional, sort of that neuroplasticity. So if we're not sleeping, we don't get as much of that. Okay, so when we're looking at that within itself, if we're sort of not sleeping well in the later stages of our sleep or early hours of the morning, then this sleep here, it's going to go up like that. So we're going to get less of that neuroplasticity, less of that emotional reconciliation taking place. If we cut our sleep short, then this recovery point won't come up to here. So if our sleep gets cut short, we start our day here, it's going to go like that. So our actual daily preparedness or our daily cognitive function is going to decrease. So if that decreases, then our decision making decreases with it, and the potential for us to take on challenges decreases as well. So we're going to avoid any sort of difficult decision, we're going to avoid any confrontation. So when we look at it as a period over time, this is our sleep period here. Okay, so if we're sleeping, and this kind of represents 6 hours a night, so if we're sleeping 6 hours a night or less, our recovery from day to day is going to decrease, and then we start going down and down and down and down until we get to a point where it flatlines, and it sort of flatlines at around 70 to 80%. So if you're sleeping less than 6 hours, then you're going to drop your performance by 20 to 30% over sort of 7 to 10 days, and that's where your function's going to be. So your willingness to take on any sort of difficult task, okay, is reduced by about 30%. So there's a huge drop in your level of resilience just based on the fact that you're not sleeping enough. You're not getting this recovery that you need overnight on sort of your threat response, your emotion, and your neuroplasticity. So, and if you're 6 hours here, you probably reduced around 30% of your learning from the day before. So your ability to actually learn, take that information in, and then apply it in the future is heavily compromised. When we look at even a single night's sleep, so this represents sort of a night where you might only get 2 hours sleep or 3 hours sleep, you go into a massive reduction. And again, this could be 20 to 30%. and then slowly over time it comes up. So even if you have a really good sleep here, it's not going to return to baseline straight away. It's going to take around 5 to 7 days, maybe longer, depending on how big a hole you've dug yourself into in that period of lack of sleep. So when we think about sleep, sleep is probably the number one biggest factor when it comes to your resilience. So if you're not getting sleep and you're functioning down here, or you're functioning over here over time, then that's probably going to be one of the biggest reasons why you're not being resilient. And it also influences a lot of your nutritional decisions, because you want these high burning foods so you can improve your brain function because of this drop. So your brain's always going to prioritize fast energy to increase your cognitive function. But at the same time, you're going to be avoiding a lot of difficult decisions, because subconsciously in your brain, it doesn't want to compromise its energy intake or available energy by burning it on things that it could avoid. So you're going to be highly avoidant in all of your behaviours when you're functioning at that level, because you want to conserve energy for anything that is really important that might pop up, and you're constantly scanning for threats. So you're picking up all these threats and you're trying to avoid them. So one of the big reasons why you might be having difficulty, or why you might not be very resilient, or you question your mental toughness, it could just be sleep. So by fixing up your sleep, you might be able to sort of get rid of a lot of these issues and find that you are more willing to take on difficult tasks, you are more willing to confront challenge, and your resilience goes up just purely for sleep. And sleep's free. It's one of the number one things you can fix right now that will cost you nothing financially, cost you nothing to go to bed, and it'll have a massive improvement. So there's a number of resources out there that looks at how you improve your sleep hygiene. Okay, so you want to make sure that you're doing all the good things before you go to bed, setting all these good patterns, all these routines, and sleep needs to be your number one habit, okay, that'll improve your resilience. You get this right and a lot of your other problems are just going to go away. Okay, so again, I hope that's helpful, I hope that's informative. Again, if you've got any questions, please feel free to reach out, and I look forward to presenting the next presentation in the series.